Hello. Sometimes it takes me 7,000 to figure out what thumbnail I'm okay with. But sometimes it just happens on the first go. But not today. Not today. Been working hard at my internship this morning. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Um, yeah, doing a grid, making a spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets. Um, Been listening to the musical Miss Saigon at the same time. I've never actually listened to it all the way through before. And last night when I was watching 3 hours worth of YouTube videos, I came across Lea Salanga's original audition. And that was really interesting to watch because she's a baby. She's very young, which is the case with, I don't know. I guess that was accurate casting. But yeah, that's what I have been doing today. I'm trying to stall for time to see if anybody else is going to show up with us. Oh, I can show you the most wonderful thing, but I also really want Shiv to be here for it. But I'll just do it because I have it on right now. I guess that should have been the thumbnail, huh? But I thought my shirt came. Hide all the longing. We can't let them know we yearn. Um, so that's an original Shiv quote, and it's not quoted on the shirt, and I plagiarized. But that's where we are, folks. We are in plagiarizing city. It's just north of. I don't know. I don't have any witty place for it to be just north of. Okay. So, what happened yesterday? A lot. So yesterday, Kathy and Edgar continued to have, I'm going to redo my hair while I talk about this. It smells nice. Sorry. They continued to have a fight about whether or not Heathcliff should be allowed to visit. And Kathy, had some sort of episode. Nellie, of course, is she didn't have an episode. She was just being a bastard. And of course, when she said that, Shiv, I don't know if you just got here, but we accidentally plagiarized you, but check it out. Hide all the longing. We can't let them know we yearn. It's a shirt now, but we didn't credit you on the shirt. Patricia and I both have them. You thought we were joking, but it's incredibly important to me. And I can wear it on set because it's a dark color and won't reflect onto actors. That is if we ever get to go back to doing things that we love. Yeah, so I'm very excited about this. It's a great summer shirt to let people subtly know that you're longing, but hiding it. Okay, so Kathy got into this big fight with Edgar. She shut herself in her room for a couple of days, and everyone's like, should we come in? I don't really know what you want us to do. So eventually Nellie comes in and is like, girl, you gotta eat something. And she gives her a piece of toast. And Kathy tells her about these visions she's been having. And Nellie's like, you gotta go to sleep. So Kathy's like, and then I was at the Heights and I'm dying. And I told Heathcliff that we would be we'll die together. And there's whoa, what's going on? So Nellie's like, I can't do this on my own. So Edgar comes in and Nellie's like, we need the doctor. And Edgar gets mad at Nellie because essentially the reason the whole thing happened was Nellie came and was like, so he lives here and it's weird. So Edgar's like, never tell me anything again, Nellie. Nellie's like, okay. And so they call the doctor for Kathy, and the doctor's like, hey, I heard Isabella ran off with Heathcliff. And Kathy's like, well, I suppose this would classify as anything, so I will not tell it to Edgar. And then Edgar figures out that Isabella has eloped with Heathcliff and is like, she's out of the fam. I don't know her. And everyone is very sad, and we're going to find out what happens with that right now. Let's do it. Pruitt. I don't know if Pruitt's a word. Okay. Wuthering Heights, Volume 1, Chapter 13. For 2 months, the fugitives remained absent. In those months, Mrs. Linton encountered and conquered the worst shock of what was denominated a brain fever. No mother could have nursed an only child more devotedly than Edgar tended her. Day and night he was watching and patiently enduring all the annoyances that irritable nerves and a shaken reason could inflict. And though Kenneth remarked that what he saved from the grave would only recompense his care by forming a source of constant future anxiety, in fact, that his health and strength were being sacrificed to preserve a mere ruin of humanity, he knew no limits in gratitude and joy when Catherine's life was declared out of danger, and hour after hour, he would sit beside her, tracing the gradual return to bodily health, and flattering his too sanguine hopes with the illusion that her mind would settle back to its right balance also, and she would soon be entirely her former self. The first time she left her chamber was at the commencement of the following March. Mr. Linton had put on her pillow in the morning a handful of golden crocuses. What the hell is a crocus? And how do I get my hands on one? Okay, crocuses. Her eye, long stranger to any gleam of pleasure, caught them in waking, and shone delighted as she gathered them eagerly together. These are the earliest flowers at the Heights, she exclaimed. That's what and then that would be a crocklet, please. She exclaimed. They remind me of that soft thaw of winds and warm sunshine and nearly melted snow. Edgar, is there not a south wind, and is not the snow almost gone? The snow is quite gone down here, darling, replied her husband, and I only see 2 white spots on the whole range of moors. The sky is blue, and the larks are singing, and the becks and brooks are all brimful. Catherine, last spring this time, I was longing to have you under this roof. Now, I wish you were a mile or 2 up those hills. What? The air blows so sweetly, I feel that it would cure you. What the heck? Wait, they've been married for more than a year, right? I shall never be there but once more, said the invalid, and then you'll leave me and I shall remain forever. Next spring you'll long again to have me under this roof, and you'll look back and think you were happy today. Linton lavished on her the kindest caresses and tried to cheer her by the fondest words, but vaguely regarding the flowers, she let the tears collect on her lashes and stream down her cheeks unheeding. We knew she was really better, and therefore decided that long confinement to a single place produced much of this despondency, and it might be partially removed by a change of scene. The master told me to light a fire in the many weeks deserted parlor, and to set an easy chair in the sunshine by the window, and then he brought her down, and she sat lovingly while enjoying the genial heat, and as we expected, revived by the objects round her, which, though familiar, were free from the dreary associations investing her hated sick chamber. By evening she seemed greatly exhausted, yet no arguments could persuade her to return to that apartment, and I had to arrange the parlor sofa for her bed till another room could be prepared. Thank you. To obviate the fatigue of mounting and descending the stairs, we fitted up this, where you lie at present on the same floor with the parlor, and she was soon strong enough to move from one to the other, leaning on Edgar's arm. Ah, I thought myself, she might recover, so waited on as she was. And there was a double cause to desire it, for on her existence depended that of another. We cherished the hope that in a little while Mr. Linton's heart would be gladdened, and his land secured from a stranger's gripe by the birth of an heir. I always wanna say hair, and I always have to stop myself. Because once I was Julius this is my personal trauma that you're about to receive. Once I was playing Julius Caesar in 7th grade, and because I'm because I'm single hair. Actually, there's a whole story about, like, this woman who, like what was her name? What was her name? Maybe it was, like it was Mary something. Oh, no, it was just in, like in class, we were, like, reading something about Julius Caesar. I was not officially playing Julius Caesar. Yeah, okay, sorry, many tangents going on. First tangent, there's a woman who in, like, 18th century England, like, had a bunch of miscarriages and then started giving birth to rabbits, and all of the doctors at the time were like, "Whoa, she's really giving birth to rabbits." And then eventually they were like, "Oh, she was just tricking us." Um, which was, like, really, like I know, right? But essentially, she just, like, bamboozled the whole of England into thinking that she was giving birth to rabbits, and it was like, okay, really cool because rabbits are like were like a show of wealth. And so she was this woman and like nobody understood jack shit about the female reproductive system. And so like I guess not the female reproductive system, just the reproductive system of a uterus. I'll try that. Because nobody understood jack shit about that. So, exactly. So they were just like, if women think too hard when they're pregnant, what they think about can sometimes come out of their bodies. So, like, if there's anything like wrong with the baby, it's the mom's fault. Um, yeah, and so basically, like, this woman for a while was quote unquote giving birth to rabbits, and like the king got involved. He was like, she needs to come to London. And then eventually people were like, dude, she's not giving birth to rabbits. Like, she's just not happening. And then everyone was like, oh my God, she fooled us all. And everybody got really mad at her, and she got like imprisoned for a while. Um, but yeah, so that's that. Her first name was definitely Mary, but I don't know what her last name was. Um, I want to say Alcott, but I know that's wrong. Um, and then the other, what was the other thing we were talking about? Oh, the other thing, my Julius Caesar story, um, was that when I was in 7th grade, we did like this reading of Julius Caesar, and because I'm was like usually the only one in the classroom who like really liked theater, I was always like, I will play all the quintessentially male roles, and I should, as she should. Uh, but like I remember I like impassionately yelled in the middle of my 7th grade classroom, I have no hair. And that's how I learned that air and hair are pronounced differently. So that's that little tangent for today. We are not 2 pages into this yet, and it's already 15 minutes has gone by. Oh Lord. Okay. Where was I? Okay. I should mention that Isabella sent to her brother some 6 weeks from her departure a short note announcing her marriage with Heathcliff. It appeared dry and cold, but at the bottom was dotted with pencil an obscure apology and an entreaty for kind remembrance and reconciliation if her proceeding had offended him, asserting that she could not help it then, and being done, she had now no power to repeal it. Uh, Linton did not reply to this, I believe, and in a fortnight more I got a long letter which I considered odd, coming from the pen of a bride just out of the honeymoon. I'll read it for keeping it yet. Any relic of the dead is precious, if they were valued living. Dear Ellen, it begins, I came last night to Wuthering Heights and heard for the first time that Catherine has been and is yet very ill. I must not write to her, I suppose, and my brother is either too angry or too distressed to answer what I send. Yet, still I must write to somebody, and the only choice left me is you. Inform Edgar that I'd give the world to see his face again, that my heart returned to Thrushcross Grange in 24 hours after I left it, and is there at this moment full of warm feelings for him and Catherine. I can't follow it, though. Oh dear. Those words are underlined. They need not expect me, and they may draw what conclusions they please, taking care, however, to lay nothing at the door of my weak will or deficient affection. The remainder of the letter is for yourself alone. I want to ask you two questions. The first is, how did you contrive to preserve the common sympathies of human nature when you resided here? I cannot recognize any sentiment which those around share with me. The second question I have great interest in is this. Is Mr. Heathcliff a man? If so, is he mad? And if not, is he a devil? I shan't tell my reasons for making this inquiry, but I beseech you to explain, if you can, what I have married. That is, when you call to see me, you must call, Ellen, very soon. Don't write, but come and bring me something from Edgar. Now you shall hear how I have been received in my new home, as I am led to imagine the Heights will be. It is to amuse myself that I dwell on such subjects as a lack of external comforts. They never occupy my thoughts except at the moment when I miss them. I should laugh and dance for joy if I found their absence was the total of my miseries, and the rest was an unnatural dream. I'm also concerned. The sun set behind... Is this still her? The sun set behind the grange as we turned onto the moors. By that I judged it to be 6 o'clock, and my companion halted half an hour to inspect the park and the gardens, and probably the place itself as well as he could. So it was dark when we dismounted in the paved yard on the farmhouse, and your old fellow servant Joseph issued out to receive us by the light of a dip candle. He did it with a curtsy that redounded to his credit. What? His first act was to elevate his torch to a level with my face, squint malignantly, project under his lip, and turn away. Then he took the two horses and led them into the stables, reappearing for the purpose of locking the outer gate as if we lived in an ancient castle. Heathcliff stayed to speak to him, and I entered the kitchen, a dingy, untidy hole. I dare say you would not know it. It is so changed since it was in your charge. By the fire stood a ruffianly child, strong in limb and dirty in garb, with a look of Catherine in his eyes and about his mouth. This is Edgar's legal nephew, I reflected. Mine in a manner. I must shake hands. Yes, I must kiss him. It is right to establish a good understanding at the beginning. I approached and, attempting to take his chubby fist, said, "How do you do, my dear?" He replied in a jargon I did not comprehend. Oh, girl. Shall you and I be friends, Hareton? Was my next essay at conversation. An oath and a threat to set Throttler on me if I did not frame off rewarded my perseverance. "Hey, Throttler, lad," whispered the little wretch, rousing a half-breed bulldog from its lair in a corner. "Now, wilt thou be going?" he asked authoritatively. Love for my life urged a compliance. I stepped over the threshold to wait till the others should enter. Mr. Heathcliff was nowhere visible, and Joseph, whom I followed to the stables and requested to accompany me in, after staring and muttering to himself, screwed up his nose and replied, "Did ever Christian body hear not like it? Munching and munching. How can I tell what you say?" Munching? "I say, I wish you to come with me into the house," I cried, thinking him deaf, yet highly disgusted by his rudeness. Well, "No, not me. I gettin' something else to do," he answered, and continued his work, moving his lantern jaws meanwhile, and surveying my dress and countenance. The former a great deal too fine, but the latter, I'm sure, as sad as he could desire, with sovereign contempt. I walked round the yard and through a wicket to another door at which I took the liberty of knocking, in hopes some more civil servant might show himself. After a short suspense, it was opened by a tall, gaunt man, without neckerchief, and otherwise extremely slovenly. His features were lost in masses of shaggy hair that hung on his shoulders, and his eyes, too, were like a ghostly Catherine's, with all their beauty annihilated. "What's your business here?" he demanded grimly. "Who are you?" "My name was Isabella Linton," I replied. "You have seen me before, sir. I'm lately married to Mr. Heathcliff, and he has brought me here. I suppose by your permission." "Is he come back, then?" asked the hermit, glaring like a hungry wolf.
Well, yes, we just came now, I said, but he left me by the kitchen door, and when I would have gone in, your little boy played sentinel over the place and frightened me off by the help of a bulldog. It's well the hellish villain has kept his word, growled my future host, searching the darkness beyond me in expectation of discovering Heathcliff. And then he indulged in a soliloquy of excretions, yeah, and threats of what he would have done had the fiend deceived him. Jennifer's Body is a great film. Um, I repented having tried the second entrance, and was almost inclined to slip away before he finished cursing. But ere I could execute that intention, he ordered me in and shut and refastened the door. There was a great fire, and that was all the light in the huge apartment, whose floor had grown a uniform gray, and the once brilliant pewter dishes which used to attract my gaze when I was a girl partook of similar obscurity created by tarnish and dust. I inquired whether I might call the maid and be conducted to a bedroom. Mr. Earnshaw vouchsafed no answer. He walked up and down, with his hands in his pockets, apparently quite forgetting my presence, and his abstraction was evidently so deep, and his whole aspect so misanthropical, that I shrank from disturbing him again. You'll not be surprised, Ellen, at my feeling particularly cheerless, seated in worse than solitude, on that inhospitable hearth, and remembering that 4 miles distant lay my delightful home, containing the only people I loved on earth, and there might as well be the Atlantic to part us instead of those 4 miles I could not overpass them. I questioned myself. Where must I turn for comfort? And, mind you, don't tell Edgar or Catherine. Above every sorrow beside, this rose preeminent, despair at finding nobody who could or would be my ally against Heathcliff. Girl, I'm so sorry that everything was so messed up for you that you were just like, after talking to this guy like for 2 hours, you were like, yeah, I think I'll marry him. And now you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, no, no. Um, I had sought shelter at Wuthering Heights almost gladly because I was secured by that arrangement from living alone with him. But he knew that the people were coming amongst, and he did not fear their intermeddling. I sat and thought a doleful time. The clock struck 8 and 9, and still my companion paced to and fro, his head bent on his breast, and perfectly silent, unless a groan or a bitter ejaculation forced itself out at intervals. I listened to detect a woman's voice in the house, and filled the interim with wild regrets and dismal anticipations, which at last spoke audibly in irrepressible sighing and weeping. I was not aware how openly I grieved till Earnshaw halted opposite in his measured walk and gave me a stare of newly awakened surprise. Taking advantage of his recovered attention, I exclaimed, I'm tired with my journey and I want to go to bed. Where is the maidservant? Direct me to her, she won't come to me. We have none, he answered. You must wait on yourself. Where must I sleep then? I sobbed. I was beyond regarding self-respect and weighed down by fatigue and wretchedness. Joseph will show you to Heathcliff's chambers, said he. Open that door. He's in there. I was going to obey, but he suddenly arrested me and added in the strangest tone, Be so good as to turn your lock and draw your bolt. Don't omit it. Well, I said, but why, Mr. Earnshaw? I do not relish the notion of deliberately fastening myself in with Heathcliff. Oh, God. Look here, he replied, pulling from his waistcoat a curiously constructed pistol, having a double-edged spring knife attached to the barrel. That's a great tempter. What the hell? That's a great tempter to a desperate man, is it not? I cannot resist going up with this every night and trying his door. Oh, my God. If I once find it open, he's done for. I do it invariably, even though the minute before I have been recalling 100 reasons that should make me refrain. It is some devil that urges me to thwart my own schemes by killing him. You fight against that devil for love as long as you may. When the time comes, not all the angels in heaven shall save him. I surveyed the weapon inquisitively. A hideous notion struck me. How powerful I should be possessing such an instrument. I took it from his hand and touched the blade. He looked astonished at the expression my face assumed for a brief second. It was not horror, it was covetousness. He snatched the pistol back jealously, shut the knife, and returned it to its concealment. I don't care if you tell him, said he. Put him on his guard and watch for him. You know the terms we are on, I see. His danger does not shock you. What has Heathcliff done to you? I asked. In what has he wronged you to warrant this appalling hatred? Wouldn't it be wiser to bid him quit the house? No, thundered Earnshaw. Should he offer to leave me, he's a dead man. Persuade him to attempt it, and you are a murderess. Am I to lose all without a chance of retrieval? Is Hareton to be a beggar? Oh, damnation, I will have it back. I'll have his gold too, and then his blood, and hell shall have his soul. It will be 10 times blacker with that guest than ever it was before. What? Oh, he's talking about hell. Yuck. You've acquainted me, Ellen, with your old master's habits. He's clearly on the verge of madness. He was so last night, at least. I shuddered to be near him and thought on the servant's ill-bred moroseness as comparatively agreeable. He now recommenced his moody walk, and I raised the latch and escaped into the kitchen. Joseph was bending over the fire, peering into a large pan that swung above it, and a wooden bowl of oatmeal stood on the settle close by. The contents of the pan began to boil, and he turned to plunge his hand into the bowl. I conjectured that this preparation was probably for our supper, and, being hungry, I resolved it should be eatable. So crying out sharply, I'll make the porridge, I removed the vessel out of his reach and proceeded to take off my hat and riding habit. Mr. Earnshaw, I continued, directs me to wait on myself. I will. I'm not going to act the lady among you, for fear I should starve. Good Lord, he muttered, sitting down and stroking his ribbed stockings from the knee to the ankle. If they's to be fresh otherings, just when I was getting used to 2 masters, if I must have a mistress set over my head, it's like time to be flitting. I never did think to say today that I might have the old place, but I doubt it's night at hand. What? That I must leave the old place, but I doubt it's nigh at hand. Okay. This lamentation drew no notice from me. I went briskly to work, sighing to remember a period when it would have been all merry fun, but compelled speedily to drive off the remembrance. It racked me to recall past happiness, and the greater peril was of conjuring up its apparition. The quicker the thimble ran round, and the faster the handfuls of meal fell into the water. Joseph beheld my style of cookery with growing indignation. There, he ejaculated. Hareton, that will not sup thy porridge tonight. There'll be naught but lumps as big as my knave. There again, I'd fling in a bowl and all, if I were you. There, pale to the peel the gulp off, and then you'll have done with. Bang, bang, it's a mercy the bottom isn't dived out. I don't know. It was a rather rough mess, I own, when poured into the basins, for which had been provided, and a gallon of milk was brought from the dairy, which Hareton seized and commenced drinking and spilling from the expansive lip. I expostulated and desired that he should have his in a mug, affirming that I could not taste the liquids treated so dirtily. The old cynic chose to be vastly offended at this nicety, assuring me repeatedly that the barn was every bit as good as I, and every bit as wholesome, and wondering how I could fashion be so conceited. Meanwhile, the instant ruffian continued sucking and glowered up at me defyingly as he slavered into the jug. I shall have my supper in another room, I said. Have you no place to call a parlor? Parlor, he echoed sneeringly. Parlor. Nay, we've no parlors. If you don't like our company, there's masters, and if you don't like masters, there's us. Then I shall go upstairs, I answered. Show me a chamber. I put my basin on a tray and went myself to fetch some milk. With great grumblings, the fellow rose and preceded me in my ascent. We mounted to the garrets. He opened a door now and then to look into the apartments we passed. Here's a room, he said at last, flinging back a cranky board on hinges. It's well enough to eat a few porridge in. There's a pack of corn in the corner there, meagerly clean, moderately clean. If you're afraid of mucking your grand silk clothes, spread your handkerchief on top of it. The room was a kind of lumber hole, smelling strong of malted grain, various sacks of which articles were piled around, leaving a wide bare space in the middle. Why, man, I exclaimed, facing me angrily, this is not a place to sleep in. I wish to see my bedroom. Bedroom, he repeated in a tone of mockery. You'll see all the bedrooms there is. There's mine. Yon's mine. He pointed into the second garret, only differing from the first in being more naked about the walls, and having a large, low, curtainless bed with an indigo-colored quilt at one end. What do I want with yours? I retorted. I suppose Mr. Heathcliff does not lodge at the top of the house, does he? Oh, it's Master Heathcliff you're wanting, cried he as if making a new discovery. Couldn't you have said so at once? And then I must tell you, but all this work, but that's just one you can't see. He, alas, keeps it locked, and nobody ever moles on it but himself. Hey. You've a nice house, Joseph, I could not refrain from observing, and pleasant inmates. And I think the concentrated essence of all madness in the world took up its abode in my brain the day I linked my fate with theirs. Good Lord. However, that is not the present purpose. There are other rooms. For heaven's sake, be quick and let me settle somewhere. He made no reply to this adjuration, only plodding doggedly down the wooden steps and halting before an apartment which, from that halt and the superior quality of its furniture, I conjectured to be the best one. There was a carpet, a good one, but the pattern was obliterated by dust, a fireplace hung with cut paper dropping to pieces, a handsome oak bedstead with ample crimson curtains of rather expensive material and modern make. But they had evidently experienced rough usage. The valances hung in festoons wrenched from their rings, and the iron rod supporting them was bent in an arc on one side, causing the drapery to trail upon the floor. The chairs were also damaged, many of them severely, and deep indentations deformed the panels of the walls. Good Lord. I was endeavoring to gather resolution for entering and taking possession when my fool of a guide announced, "This here's the master's." My supper by this time was cold, my appetite gone, and my patience exhausted. I insisted on being provided instantly with a place of refuge and a means of repose. "Where the devil," began the religious elder, "the Lord bless us, the Lord forgive us. Where the hell would you go? You married wearisome knout? Not? You seen all but Hareton's bit of chamber. There's not another hole to be dug in this house." Oh, girl. I was so vexed, I flung my tray and its contents on the ground, and then seated myself at the stairhead, hid my face in my hands, and cried. Ah! Exclaimed Joseph. Well done, Miss Cathy. Well done, Miss Cathy. However, the master shall just tumble over the broken pots, and then we hear something. We hear how it's to be. Good for not maddling. You deserve pining through this Christmas, flinging the precious gifts of God underfoot in your flaysome rages. But I'm mistaken if you show your spirit long. Will Heathcliff bid such bonny ways, think ye? And nobody wish he must catch you in that plisky? I not but wish he may. And so he went scolding to his den beneath, taking the candle with him, and I remained in the dark. The period of reflection succeeding this silly action compelled me to admit the necessity of smothering my pride and choking my wrath, and bestirring myself to remove its effects. An unexpected aid presently appeared in the shape of Throttler, whom I now recognized as the son of our old skulker. It had spent its wellput at the Grange, and was given by my father to Mr. Hindley. I fancy it knew me. It pushed its nose against mine by way of salute, and then hastened to devour the porridge, while I groped from step to step, collecting the shattered earthenware and drying the spatters of milk from the banister with my pocket handkerchief. Our labors were scarcely over when I heard Earnshaw's tread in the passage. My assistant tucked in his tail and pressed to the wall. I stole into the nearest doorway. The dog's endeavor to avoid him was unsuccessful, and as I guessed by a scutter downstairs and a prolonged, piteous yelping, oh no. I had better luck. He passed on, entered his chamber, and shut the door. Directly after Joseph came up with Hareton to put him to bed. Directly after Joseph came up with Hareton to put him to bed. I had found shelter in Hareton's room, and the old man, on seeing me, said, oh gosh, there's room for you both, and your pride not. I said, I should think, in the house. It's empty. You must have it all to yourself, and him as a lass makes a third in such ill company. Gladly did I take advantage of this intimation, and the minute I flung myself into a chair by the fire, I nodded and slept. My slumber was deep and sweet, though over far too soon. Mr. Heathcliff had just come in and demanded in his loving way what I was doing there. I told him the cause of my staying up so late, that he had a key of our room in his pocket. The adjective of R gave mortal offense. He swore it was not, nor ever should be mine, but I'll not repeat his language, nor describe his habitual conduct. He is ingenious and unresting in seeking to gain my abhorrence. I sometimes wonder at him with an intensity that deadens my fear. Yet, I assure you, a tiger or a venomous serpent could not rouse terror in me equal to that which he wakens. He told me of Catherine's illness and accused my brother of causing it, promising that I should be Edgar's proxy in suffering till he could get a hold of him. I do hate him. I am wretched. I have been a fool. Beware of uttering one death of this to anyone at the Grange. I shall expect you every day. Don't disappoint me. Isabella. Oh my God! No, baby! No, baby! That's the end. We can only hope. And the dog. Isabella and the dog. Oh, this poor baby. Ooh, the next chapter is the end of volume 1. Nark, 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 nark. All right. Oh, poor Isabella. There's only one man in the tri-state area. Oh, honey. Oh, man. I know that nothing good will happen to her now that she's here and connected with Heathcliff. Oh, she's just so caught in the middle of everything, and now nobody's her friend. At least, I don't know. Is there any at least? All right. I'm gonna go eat lunch really quick. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I will be here at 3. So thanks for tuning in. As always, I always have a really wonderful time here. Except when everything is bad and sad, and then I have a bad and sad time. But I hope that you are all doing okay. I know that this can provide some, oh dear, I'm waiting while we try reconnecting. Okay. This whole situation can provide vast fluctuations in how we're doing. So I hope today we're all fluctuating towards okay. But I know that that may not always be the case. So take care of yourself. And I'll see you all tomorrow. All right. Bye.